To mid-70s. Wind takes a back seat for today in the next couple of days. Thank goodness, too. Overnight low temperatures will fall back down to around 50. We're back up to around 80 for our Friday, easily into the mid-80s for Saturday and Easter Sunday. That's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
Hey folks, you know Randy Marion is the king of price when it comes to buying a new vehicle or a pre-owned vehicle, but how about king of price when it comes to the service department? Randy Marion Chevrolet in Statesville, Randy Marion Ford Lincoln in Statesville has you covered on tires, brakes, batteries, wipers, you name it. Any service you need on your vehicle, regardless of the make or model, come see Randy Marion Chevrolet in Statesville Service Department or Randy Marion Ford Lincoln Service Department today.
The following is a paid program and does not necessarily reflect the views of WSIC.
Hello and welcome to Dollars and Cents presented by North Main Financial. I'm your host, Joshua Dobi. Thank you so much for hanging with us here, 4 o'clock hour on a Thursday. If you're a 9 to 5er, you got 53 minutes, 24 seconds until you hit that 5 o'clock bell. And I appreciate so much you spending that time with us here on Dollars and Cents as we give attention to, perhaps even spark a little conversation regarding items of financial and economic importance. Now, you know, as a previous listener to this show, we're talking on any number of things. We're going to be doing it again here today. I'll tell you what, folks, it hasn't been hard to fill up the page with things to discuss during the show here. My goodness. I mean, just about every news headline that's pulsing through right now has something to do with the macroeconomic picture, our markets. If you're watching your 401k, lots of stuff here. Lots of stuff we're going to be talking about, and not even going to get to all of it, I'm certain, at least not here in the hour show, but I'm going to try to get the big stuff. But in doing so, you recall as a previous listener that as we're doing that, nothing that we're talking about here is intended as a specific recommendation for you. Meaning that even though we're going to be talking on some things, some in a positive light, some in a negative light, again, in doing so, everybody has their particular financial situation. We strongly, strongly recommend you reach out to your tax advisor, your financial advisor, or if you'd like to reach out to us at North Main Financial Group, love to chat with you, love to hear about your particular financial journey, see if there are ways in which we might be able to be helpful to you. Online, you can find us, northmainfinancial.com. That's north like the direction, Main like the street, financial.com, northmainfinancial.com. We have a contact page on there. Leave us an email address or a phone number. Let us know the most preferred and desirable ways for us to contact you, again, at northmainfinancial.com. You're also welcome to call us here in the studio. Can't promise we're going to get to your question. Producer Reese, he'll make sure he gets your question down there. If I can't get to it today, promise I'll get to it next week. We got a lot jam-packed into the show, but we certainly want to make the subjects and certainly your points of interest relevant here. So please call in if you got something that you'd like for us to touch on or for me to opine a little bit about, at least within the regulations that I'm allowed to opine on certain things. Happy to do it. 844-STUDIO-4. That's 844-788-3464. 844-788-3464. Here in the studio. All right, let's go ahead and just crank right into it. We just got beyond tax season. I'm sure there's a big sigh of relief for many of you out there, or maybe just a feeling of just being empty-pocketed. I'm sure that's true for many of us, that once you get beyond tax season, certainly if you owed money to the IRS, it's good to get that kind of stuff behind you, but it's a little bit deflating if you had to write a check to the IRS, or maybe you're one who's expecting a refund and you're anxiously taking a look at your bank account there every single time that you're opening up the app online. And I can see producer Reese, he's giving me the big thumbs up there, looking for that refund. I'm happy for you, producer Reese. That's good. But at any rate, but we're finally beyond it. And so that's a good thing to have that kind of season behind us. We had the Masters this past weekend. Yeah, Masters is one of those things you don't even have to be a golf aficionado, I don't think, to really appreciate. Just beautiful. And then you got Jim Nantz in the background there, and he's doing his announcing thing. And I mean, if you're looking to take a good nap, I'm serious about this. If you're looking to take a good nap, you've never watched the Masters, watch the Masters next year. Man, what an experience. Unbelievable. And unbelievable cinematography as well. Just watching the pictures and the video from that. And Rory McIlroy, first time ever. And now he has the career slam, meaning he's won all 4 majors over the course of his career. 6 people in the history of professional golf for the PGA 6 people in history have done that. Now he's one of them. Pretty amazing stuff. Pretty cool to watch. All right, but I know you came here for the market stuff. We got to give you other stuff too. We're going to get some sports. We're going to get some food. I got some very interesting collaborations here, food-wise. I promised producer Reese I wouldn't talk about anything that sounded entirely, let's say, unusual in the food collaboration and things. Every once in a while we get some kind of weird stuff that we bring up here, but I promised them that we had some stuff that went together in what sounded like a pretty palatable way. So we'll get to that a little bit later in the show, but let's go ahead and get jumping right into it. Hard to start anything relative to economic and market space here without talking about the continued gyrations in the stock markets and bond markets, frankly. Bond markets, I know they don't get nearly as much publicity. They're sometimes a little bit harder to track and a little bit harder to understand, but the bond markets actually are significantly larger in terms of overall dollars than the equity markets are. And so the movement in the bond markets tends to be a very significant indicator about consumer sentiment, and certainly with regards to folks having confidence either in the equity markets or lack thereof, and certainly for our economy overall here in the U.S. and in other countries, for that matter. Talking about sovereign debt in other countries as well, but it continued gyrations this week. Actually, just before I went online here or on air, excuse me, and on today's show. Another very volatile day in the market, a lot of gyration in a couple of different avenues. We're going to be talking about some of the stocks that earnings reports, okay, maybe weren't great, but have just been punished in terms of their stock price. We'll be talking about that here in a few minutes. But the overall markets, as measured by our most popular stock indices, again, a very volatile kind of week. And if you're looking at some of the most popular names, certainly some of the most popular names that have been out there here for the last couple of years. And yes, I'm looking at you in the large technology space, meaning large capitalization technology companies. They have been in many ways really wrapped over the head. You're looking at 15, 20, 25% and more decreases in stock price off of the highs from where they were. Folks, that's a lot of movement. It's a lot of movement in a very short amount of time. Now, in saying that, it's not unusual. It's not like it's the first time this has happened, or it's the first time that the market has ever performed or acted in this way. That's not the case at all. Actually, you've heard me say any number of times, I'll say it again, probably a couple more times today, that this kind of market activity, not only is it not unusual, but in my end of the universe, it's expected. It has to happen periodically in order to create a healthier market. Let me say it this way. And we see this in the market too. We saw this a little bit towards the end of last calendar year. If the market just continuously increased all the time, while you may think instinctively or very, very quickly that, well, my goodness, that would be perfect. At least everybody, I would make a lot of money by doing that. That's true, but that's not a market. Because remember, and again, I know this is very basic stuff, but sometimes we need to be reminded of this kind of thing, that for every buyer, there is a seller in the market. Think about that. Folks with literally opposite intentions in terms of holding that particular security. Now, that's not to say that it's all for bad reasons or all for good reasons, but it's not even to say that one is a bad reason and the other is a good reason, but rather it's an indication of the fact that there are constantly moving tensions within a healthy market that require it periodically to pull back. That's what makes it healthy. I know that's a little bit counterintuitive. You may not even agree with me on that. I certainly understand that. That's not offensive to me if you don't, but we actually need it to happen. So we're seeing that now, and you may or may not agree with the reasons that it's pulling back. I'm not going to get into the political aspects of things about why things are moving in the ways that they are during the course of this show, but rather just to create awareness that this actually has to happen, whether it's due to this particular set of circumstances or another, or a geopolitical event or other kind of macroeconomic factor. At some level, it really doesn't matter so long as periodically it happens. Well, friends, I appreciate so much hanging with us here on Dollars and Cents, presented by North Main Financial. Hang with us as we hear for a few moments from our sponsors here on WSIC.
There's more of Dollars and Cents with certified financial planner Joshua Dobi on the way from 105.9 100.7 WSIC.
Well, plenty of sunshine hanging around as we go throughout the rest of the week and into the upcoming weekend. Going to start that warming trend again, too. Temperatures this afternoon easily climb up into the low to mid 70s. Wind takes a back seat for today and the next couple of days, thank goodness, too. Overnight low temperatures will fall back down to around 50. We're back up to around 80 for our Friday, easily into the mid 80s for Saturday and Easter Sunday. That's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
The app with Lake Norman deals. The WSIC app is out now, wherever you get your apps.
Here's your WSIC community calendar. 3 days of live music kick off on Thursday at Bin 110 in Cornelius. Ryan Winters opens up the performances on Thursday. Simple Soul takes the stage on Friday, while Hey Ladies will get you moving on Saturday. Bin 110 welcomes great local musicians Thursday through Saturday. The 500 Club in Statesville is having Easter brunch this Sunday afternoon. Come celebrate the holiday with your friends and family and enjoy the club's delicious food with first-class service. Call 704-872-9990 or visit the 500 Club online for more details on Easter brunch. The Spring Gospel Music Fest will be at Alexander Central High School Auditorium in Taylorsville on April 24th. Gold City and Sabbath Quartet are the featured performers with showtime scheduled for 6:30 p.m. For more information, call 828-383-5176. Enjoy the Spring Gospel Music Fest in Taylorsville on Thursday, April 24th. The NHRA returns to ZMAX Dragway on April 25th through the 27th with the annual 4-Wide Nationals. See 40,000 horsepower at one time when drag racing's finest stars line up to compete 4-wide. Every ticket is a pit pass, so come early to see your favorite drivers and cars up close before they race at over 300 miles per hour. Visit CharlotteMotorspeedway.com for tickets and more information about the NHRA 4-Wide Nationals on April 25th through the 27th. To keep up with all the events happening around the community and much more, including amazing local deals, download the WSIC News app today.
MurrellFest 2025, presented by Window World, returns April 24th through the 27th in Wilkesboro, North Carolina. Hear the Avett Brothers, Bonnie Raitt, The Dead South, Watch House, Wyatt Floors, I'm With Her, Leftover Salmon, The Warren Treaty, The Steel Drivers, and many more. For tickets, visit MurrellFest.org.
Now more of Dollars and Cents with certified financial planner Joshua Dobi on 105.9 100.7 WSIC.
Hello and welcome back to Dollars and Cents presented by North Main Financial. I'm your host, Joshua Dobi. Thank you so much for hanging with us here. Second quarter of today's show, football reference. I can say with confidence, Producer Reese, I say this every week, so our listeners will probably either be expecting me to say this or maybe loathing that I'm going to say it. We are now 1 week closer. There it is. Yep. One week closer to the start of football season. From right here, from where we were last week,
we got a chance.
We have one, and you're going. That's exactly where I'm going.
I was
and
jumping it.
we continue to be in the same place with our Carolina Panthers, exactly on the same ground as every other team in the NFL, meaning possibility-wise at this point to win the Super Bowl. I'm ready.
There you have it.
I'm ready. I mean, it's fun just to say that every week while we're here in the off season. I mean, because things might change once we get to the break.
I have a funny feeling if I watch the game, the outcome will be better than if I just look at the stats on ESPN or something.
See, that's you're much better than I am, because if I watch it and they win, then I think that, and if I watch it and then I lose, then I think, well, then I can't watch it anymore.
Right.
Then. So anyhow, thank you for listening here as we're talking about sports and Panthers and football season, but most importantly, talking about financials and economies and all the things that are happening. Let's talk a little bit about bank earnings. I'm not going to bore you. I'm not going through spreadsheets here or anything like that. You just got to know that some of the largest banks out there have reported earnings here over the last several days and actually are reporting here over the course of the next couple of days as well. Although bank holiday tomorrow, Good Friday, market is closed, in case you didn't know that. So it's one of those holidays where during the week where the stock and bond markets are going to be closed. Tomorrow, Good Friday. So today was actually the last trading day of the week. But before that, had earnings from J.P. Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, ticker symbols respectively, Joshua, Paul, Mary, Bravo, Alpha, Charlie, and Green Sam. were the ticker symbols for JP Morgan, Bank of America, and Goldman Sachs. Not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold their equity or their debt or their bonds. Strong earnings across the board. Now, I got to clarify that a little bit because their reports were very, I'll call them similar. In terms of what was really powering their strong reports, meaning their base business, it's not even their base business anymore. I really can't say that. Let's call it traditional business for each of them and for so many of these huge money center banks. That traditional business, savings and loan kind of activity, deposits, and the extension of credit or the extension of loans there, that was basically flat. So even though we've had an increase in interest rates here, notably over the last year and a half, not as many folks taking out new mortgages, not as many folks who are requesting lines of credit. It's more expensive to do so. So that's been basically flat from a growth perspective. However, their trading desks or their investment banking desks, so the segment of those particular banks which are involved in trading activity or the management of mergers and acquisitions or M&A style activity, doing very, very well. And so that's really what powered the earnings for those big three. Morgan Stanley's out there as well, also had very good earnings. And we're going to hear from a couple of others as well here. Wells Fargo's still sitting out there, and we expect some pretty good numbers from them. But in reporting for each of those, we also heard from each of those large money center banks about the challenge of a weak U.S. dollar. And I want to talk about that here for just a moment, because you probably hear it if you're watching any business news headline right now in the just avalanche of data and avalanche of various points of discussion that so many of these business news programs are engaging in right now and talking about how things are not doing particularly well, which is really the only theme that I hear, at least on the business news that I see. But and we'll talk about that in a minute, whether that's actually true or not. But they've talked a lot about a weak U.S. dollar. Now let's understand first, very, very quickly, and at a very high level, what a weak U.S. dollar means. A weak U.S. dollar, or a weak currency of any kind, is a measure of that currency's strength in terms of how much it takes to buy another currency, right? So I'm literally going to keep it at that level. So if it's a weak U.S. dollar or some weak currency, it takes more of that U.S. dollar to buy a foreign currency, to buy a euro, to buy a Japanese yen, to buy the pound sterling, etc. Now, there are a whole lot of implications from that. And some of them are positive and some of them are not so positive. I'm not going to get into all of them here. First of all, I want you to understand when you're hearing a weak U.S. dollar, that just means it takes more U.S. dollars to be able to buy other currencies. But I'm going to talk about specifically on this item because in this world right now where we're talking about imports and exports, and everybody now is an international trade expert. Not everybody, but at least everybody who's on television, it seems like, is an international trade expert. I want to highlight the idea, first of all, that when we're talking about a weak U.S. dollar, generally speaking, that makes foreign goods even more expensive. Let me say that again. Generally speaking, that's going to make foreign goods even more expensive, regardless of tariffs. And the reason why is because in that translation, in the manufacturing aspect of things, which is done in that foreign currency, with a weaker U.S. dollar, it takes more dollars to buy that particular good. I don't want to get too much more granular than that. I don't want to get the glassy eyes or the yawns from you here as I'm going into it, but it's important to understand what that is. Now, there are some positive aspects to that as well, meaning it can be easier for domestic goods to be sold overseas, and that can be a positive thing for U.S. manufacturers. But I just wanted to clarify that, define it for us a little bit here, because we're hearing it so much through the news wires, always in a negative connotation. It may or may not be, but for right now, that's certainly been the case relative to where the U.S. dollar has been. Let's say 6 months, 12 months, 18 months ago. So a little bit weaker out there in terms of the U.S. dollar compared to other foreign currencies. That is not that is not a viciously terrible kind of thing. It happens constantly. There's constant fluctuation for that kind of space. So it's just something to keep in mind. One of those data points that we like to watch. Now, well, I'm going to bring up this next company. It's earnings season, and I love earnings season. I love talking about companies and their earnings and hearing about not only where they are, but where they anticipate going from right now. There's been a lot of negative in terms of company movement here, not completely, but in terms of company movement here, especially in the large cap technology space, here over the last several months. And you've heard me talk about that. It's important to talk about that. But one has really stood out, and it stood out primarily because of its size. It's fairly ubiquitous. I mean, I'm going to say the name. I can't imagine too many folks not knowing at least the name at this point. I mean, it's not as ubiquitous as maybe Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and McDonald's, but it's not too far behind in terms of just how universally known it at least from an awareness standpoint. You may not be one who subscribes to them, but it certainly seems like there is a tremendous amount of well, at least awareness of who they are. And I know I'm teasing this up a little bit, but I want to bring it to you. Netflix, right? Netflix, ticker symbol Nancy Frank Larry X-ray, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the equity or the debt. When we're talking about Netflix, has done quite well this year. So even in the face of all these other technology companies that have not done particularly well here in 2025 year to date, as of the time of this broadcast, Netflix has done quite fine. They're up, up positive growth since January 1st, about 8%, which is great for a year in my world, and they've done it here in the course of about 3.5 months. But they've done quite fine from a performance standpoint in terms of their stock. That has been, I know, surprising to the market, and in part that has been because as the market is trying to explain that, and I think there's some measure of believability about this space that Netflix, as objectively as measured, seems like it is one of the last apps, meaning one of the last sort of streaming services, one of the last sort of online experiences that folks are willing to give up when things get tight. And I can see that. Netflix has been around for longer than most other streaming services or other online entertainment experiences, so maybe there's a note of familiarity there. It's not very expensive to have their base level, if you're willing to have the commercials, their base level subscription. So it's one of those things that seems like that there's a stickiness to it, if you will, from the consumer standpoint. And you hear me say this all the time, as we are a consumer-based economy, it's very, very important to understand where the consumer spends, and especially when things are getting a little bit tighter, where the consumer is going to continue to spend when they have to make some choices, meaning what are they willing to give up? What are they willing to keep? And at least to this point, it seems like Netflix is one of those ones that that folks are wanting to keep more than other ones whenever they're trimming or when they're pulling back here a little bit. All right, got to bring up another one here. This one not on the earnings end of things. This one in terms of a move made by what sometimes is called an activist investor that sometimes has a bad connotation with it. I'm going to clarify here in a little bit. The name I'm sure is going to be familiar to you. Hertz Rent-A-Car, Hertz Rental Cars, ticker symbol Henry Tom Zulu. Now, I'm bringing this up primarily because of the amount of movement in the stock and the fact that it is so very well known. I also have to say that Hertz has been in and out of bankruptcy several times here over the last couple of years. And starting with COVID, and they weren't doing all that well going into COVID from a financial standpoint, from a balance sheet standpoint. COVID really wrecked that. As you can understand, the rental car industry was very heavily hit by the COVID-related shutdowns that we had. Folks weren't traveling, of course, so obviously they're not renting cars. Business travel slowed down to practically nil. And so Hertz went into bankruptcy and then came out of bankruptcy and then went back into it and then came back out again. It's been a little bit crazy to watch it. Anyhow, they are now publicly traded again under that ticker symbol of Henry Tom Zulu. And there's been a substantial investment made by, who in my circle is someone very well known, Bill Ackman, and his Pershing Square investment group. And they have made a substantial investment into Hertz. Now, what's going to happen? What's the reason for that? Why is that going to be a part of his portfolio? Usually, those kind of investors are coming in. They're going to change some things up a little bit, and then they're going to want to sell it. And that's usually how they move in those kinds of spaces. I don't really see the play here, though. It's kind of interesting. I'm assuming that he sees something of value, sees something that he's going to be able to boost up or trim some overhead, create some margin, and turn around and sell it to somebody else. I would guess is probably how these groups work. But kind of interesting doing that with a rental car company, not something that we see every day. Well, we're going to let you sit on that, but we're also going to hear from our sponsors as we take a break here on WSIC.
Dollars and Cents with your host, certified financial planner Joshua Dobi, continues straight ahead on 105.9 100.7 WSIC.
Well, plenty of sunshine hanging around as we go throughout the rest of the week and into the upcoming weekend. Going to start that warming trend again, too. Temperatures this afternoon easily climb up into the low to mid 70s. Wind takes a back seat for today and the next couple of days, thank goodness, too. Overnight low temperatures will fall back down to around 50. We're back up to around 80 for our Friday, easily into the mid 80s for Saturday and Easter Sunday. That's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
Hi, this is Bob McIntosh with the McIntosh Law Firm in Davidson. Since 1997, we have been committed to providing our clients with competent, caring, and experienced legal services. Learn more at McIntoshLawFirm.com.
Are you sick of running out of hot water? Whether it's in the middle of a shower or doing dishes, cold water's never fun. Say goodbye to those surprises with a Rinnai tankless water heater from GMV Energy. This energy-efficient propane-powered solution heats water instantly, so you'll never run out again. Plus, it saves money and frees up space. Propane models start at just $295 after rebates. Visit any G&V Energy location or gbenergy.com to learn more.
Welcome home to the feeling of Horn Heating and Air Conditioning is family-owned and operated and understands the meaning of community. We treat you like family because you are family. Visit hornhvac.com.
With 5 area locations, Desco is your go-to resource for electrical supplies. Albemarle, Mooresville, Salisbury, Statesville, and Lexington. No matter where the job takes you, you're sure to be close to a Desco. Shop now at DescoInc.com.
Color I see. Sweetheart, would you turn down? The neighbors can hear us. Sweetheart, the neighbors can hear this.
Ladies, if your husband's favorite TV setting is way too loud, it might be time for a hearing test. If this sounds familiar, it's time to call Beltone in Mooresville and Cornelius. Call 877-HEAR-123 today. That's 877-HEAR-123. Turn down the TV and turn up the conversation. Call 877-HEAR-123 now.
If you need home medical equipment, call Lowry Drug in Statesville. We have everything you need in stock, including portable oxygen concentrators, CPAPs, masks, lift chairs, wheelchairs, scooters, hospital beds, supplies, and anything else you need. Get it when you need it. Check out LowryDrug.com or call 704-873-2247. Lowry Drug, your hometown source since 1959, across from Iredell Memorial Hospital. We are worth the drive. Come see us.
Prioritizing your health is one of the best ways to take care of yourself. From routine visits to the joys of pregnancy to the illnesses that stop you in your tracks, Iredell Health System will be by your side. Learn more at iredellhealth.org.
The NASCAR Cup Series will try to tame the Lady in Black as they head to Darlington Raceway this Sunday. Catch all the action right here on WSIC, coverage beginning at 2 p.m.
Nothing but the best talk.
The area's best talk.
WSIC.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. President Trump is convinced there will be a trade deal with the European Union, but says there's no rush. Well, that's not quite how the EU sees it. Sources tell Bloomberg the bloc is working on a proposal to introduce restrictions on some exports to the U.S. as a possible retaliatory tactic in the trade war. Stock in Eli Lilly is up more than 15% today after news that its experimental weight loss pill helped patients shed weight about as well as the Ozempic shot. That's important because a pill is easier to take and less expensive to make. Chicken nuggets are returning to Taco Bell a week from today, but they'll only be around for about 8 weeks. When they were introduced back in December, they sold out in less than a week. The nation's restaurant news says there are plans for the chicken nuggets to have a permanent slot on the menu sometime next year. Markets are mixed. The Dow is down 1%, the Nasdaq down 0.1%, but the S&P is up close to 0.3%. I'm Nancy Lyons, Bloomberg Radio.
The best talk all day long.
WSIC.
Local starts here. Making your money make sense. Dollars and Cents with CFP Joshua Dobi on 105.9 100.7 WSIC.
Hello and welcome back to Dollars and Cents presented by North Main Financial. I'm your host, Joshua Dobi. Thank you so much for hanging with us here. Second half of today's show. If you're a 9 to 5, you got 24 minutes, 55 seconds until we hit that 5 o'clock bell. Appreciate you being with us here. So we're talking about all kinds of things. I mean, yeah, I know I got a little academic there in the first half of the show. I got to do that. I mean, I know a lot of you out there. You're charters. That's what we call it, charters. You're keeping your numbers on your spreadsheets and you're tracking things. You want to make sure that things are lining up in the ways that you expect. So always want to be sure to offer up some very important things for you to consider as you're looking at your charts there and understand where the markets are. But we also like to have a little bit of fun here. And one of the best ways we talk about things that are fun is when we talk about food. And the Bloomberg Minute, if you were listening there at the break there, I just heard it here with producer Reese. The Bloomberg Minute got ahead of me on this. This was going to be my top one as well. They must be pulling from the same news source, so maybe they got the same X feed that I have, formerly known as Twitter. Taco Bell. Taco Bell, owned by, again, a restaurant group, which has probably one of the top 5, maybe top 10 ticker symbols out there that are just plain cool, like the coolest of the cool. And the ticker symbol, I mean, the name of the group is Yum Restaurants, and you know what the ticker symbol is. Yum. YUM. Yellow Umbrella Mary. I mean, how can you not like that one for a restaurant group? I mean, that's pretty much the quintessential one. What do you get after that? That's pretty much the best one that's out there. Not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the equity or the debt for the Yum Restaurant Group. But Taco Bell, which is owned by Yum, announced, as you heard on Bloomberg there, that the crispy chicken nuggets are coming back. Now, I am not one who has partaken of the crispy chicken nuggets. Producer Reese has said that he has, and that they're coming back, and this is a good thing. So I guess Taco Bell World is really going to be happy.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. People are going to be happy about this.
Yeah, and it's so interesting to me because when I think about Taco Bell, and this is just me, right? So I'm only one person. There are millions of folks out there who have and do enjoy Taco Bell. I don't think of crispy chicken nuggets.
No, I mean, there's obviously restaurants that have better chicken nuggets.
Well, maybe. I mean, maybe maybe some folks are going there for their chicken nuggets.
I will say it is worth the try.
Yeah, I mean, if you're already there, that's kind of how I look at it. That's a great point. If you're already there and I see it there, and I am one who, let's say, not just for fried chicken, but pretty much anything fried, I'm willing to give it a shot.
Right.
I'm willing to be the guinea pig.
You have to do it.
I mean, I have no problem with that. I mean, and I'm saying that trying to remember one time I've had something fried that I didn't like it, and no. I cannot remember a time.
I feel the same way. Yeah.
So at any rate, so Taco Bell, owned by Yum Group, coming back with their crispy chicken nuggets. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of folks that like it, and that's going to be something that we're going to watch. We'll probably talk about that in the future as well. All right, going to keep going here. We'll talk a little more food, a little more anecdotal here. Now, this is with a food company, quick serve restaurant, not specifically talking about food. And producer Reese, you may have heard of this. This is a first timer for me, but looking at the overwhelmingly well-known name of McDonald's. So McDonald's, Mary Charlie Daniel, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the equity or the debt there. McDonald's has a McGold card. This is the first time for me. So if you're familiar with this, call into the studio, 844-STUDIO-4. If you have a McGold card, I definitely want to talk to you. 844-STUDIO-4. Calling in here to talk about this. I just heard about this.
So is this a new thing?
Well, apparently not. So apparently this has been around for quite some time, but it's very hush-hush, meaning McDonald's Corporation does not talk about it, but it has been confirmed, and I guess maybe this is why I don't know about it, that Warren Buffett, so the very well-known investor, and Bill Gates, the founder of Microsoft, both have a McGold card. And here's how it works. And it's kind of what you think it is.
Is it like unlimited?
Exactly right.
Okay.
Unlimited McDonald's food, usually for either a specific time or at a specific location. For example, Warren Buffett has said that he can get unlimited McDonald's food at his Omaha, Nebraska locations, which is where he lives. So it's not everywhere. So if he's flying somewhere, he can't flash that McGold card here in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Right. Like that would just be overpowered.
It would just, everywhere he'd went.
Right.
And I don't know, are there any limitations? Like, what if Warren Buffett takes 40 of his friends to McDonald's?
Right.
Does everybody get a quarter pounder? Is that 40 free quarter pounders?
At least they put a little bit of boundaries on them.
I would hope so.
And said, okay, you can only get it at
at these locations. Or for a specific time, because apparently there's something out there where you can get a McGold card, but maybe it's only good for a year.
Oh, okay.
See, I didn't know that either. Okay. So you better eat up and eat quick, because it's the time's ticking.
It's McDonald's.
I mean, it's McDonald's. But anyhow, so I'd never heard of this. Again, if you have a McGold card from McDonald's, where you can eat unlimited McDonald's for either at a particular location or for a specific time, I mean, it's Warren Buffett and Bill Gates, as far as I know. I'm sure there are others out there. Those are the only ones I know at this point. That was news to me. I thought that was kind of a crazy kind of thing. I mean, my goodness. And apparently, like a whole lot of these programs, I don't understand the qualifications for it. I mean, I get it. Warren Buffett, very, very, very well known. Obviously, Bill Gates, very, very well known. I mean, do the commoners get a card like this too, or is it just the billionaires that anyhow?
If anything, they're the ones that can afford it.
Well, maybe that's exactly my point. I mean, they can afford a quarter pounder with cheese, right? I mean, come on. What about the rest of us here? Anyhow, I just thought that was kind of interesting. One more here that I thought was kind of interesting. Here's a little bit of a collaboration, producer Reese. You got to tell me what you think about this one. This one sounded good, too. Wendy's Restaurants, publicly traded company, Wendy's, ticker symbol Wendy, Edward Nancy, WEN, not a recommendation, to buy, sell, or hold the stock or the debt. They have what they're calling Frosty Fusions. So we're all familiar with Frosties, I think, that Wendy's has, that soft serve ice cream that usually comes in a cup with a spoon there. They're doing fusions or collaborations with, these sounded good to me, Oreos. Yeah. Oreo cookies. The cream and the crunchy and the chocolate. Yeah, with Oreo cookies. And I thought this one was kind of interesting, Pop-Tarts. We talked Pop-Tarts. Pop-Tarts owned by Kellanova, ticker symbol K as in Kelly. Not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold that debt or equity debt or equity either. But very interesting. So the Frosty with Oreos or the Frosty with Pop-Tarts. I could dig that. That would be good. If I could have my my free quarter pounder with cheese in one hand because I have a McGold card and a Frosty with Oreos in the other, I'd be okay with that. That's a good combination.
I'm willing to try that.
I'm because that whole crunchy, smooth, cool. I mean, there's a lot happening there that's very, very appealing.
I had to pick one though. I'd pick the Oreo one.
You would? Okay. See, I would go either way. I could do Pop-Tarts as well because I like Pop-Tarts too. You know what? I mean, there isn't much I don't like if we're really going to talk about it. But I thought that was a very good collaboration there. Apparently, that's coming out next month. So if you're a Wendy's fan, make sure you're paying attention to that with the opportunity to have some new variations on an old favorite there with their Frosties. All right, let's keep going here. Got to bend back a little bit into some of this more serious stuff that's out there. The ECB, European Central Bank, that's out there, cut interest rates again by 1/4 of a point. Now, that's news. It's not news. Probably not hitting your radar screen all that much. What is interesting is that is the 7th time now that they have cut rates, and I'm drawing that as a comparison against the Federal Reserve Board. And I'm going to say it this way, and you may not agree with me, and that's entirely okay. That the Federal Reserve Board has been more in the news recently than, in my opinion, they should be. They should be seen but not heard in a lot of instances, simply because what they do in terms of regulating monetary policy really needs to be done in a way that's not always a political football. And I feel like right now that in many ways there's a lot of political maneuvering in that end of things. I'm saying all of that to say that the ECB has cut rates here now 7 times in a row. The Federal Reserve just got done raising rates. What does that mean overall for policy here? Does that mean, or will that be any indication that we could expect the Federal Reserve Board here to cut rates? And I say that now, I'm bringing it down to real world, because if they do cut rates, that's going to change the dynamic. I'm not saying that they will. Frankly, my opinion, I don't think they should. I think we just got through a raising cycle. We kind of need to feel how this season of higher interest rates feels as a country before we start cutting rates again. But I also understand the dynamics change very quickly. They certainly change a lot faster than they did a couple to several decades ago, and perhaps there's a need to move faster. But I would like to see us, what do these higher rates mean? I'm not saying it's fun when you get a mortgage, but for all my CD savers out there and money market savers out there, it's kind of nice to be able to get some ROI again. All right, we're going to hear from our sponsors here for a couple of seconds. Hang with us as we come back on the fourth quarter on WSIC.
Keep it right here. Dollars and Cents with certified financial planner Joshua Dobi will return shortly on 105.9, 100.7 WSIC.
Well, plenty of sunshine hanging around as we go throughout the rest of the week and into the upcoming weekend. Going to start that warming trend again, too. Temperatures this afternoon easily climb up into the low to mid 70s. Wind takes a back seat for today and the next couple of days, thank goodness, too. Overnight low temperatures will fall back down to around 50. We're back up to around 80 for our Friday, easily into the mid 80s for Saturday and Easter Sunday. That's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
Here's your WSIC community calendar. 3 days of live music kick off on Thursday at Bin 110 in Cornelius. Ryan Winters opens up the performances on Thursday. Simple Soul takes the stage on Friday, while Hey Ladies will get you moving on Saturday. Bin 110 welcomes great local musicians Thursday through Saturday. The 500 Club in Statesville is having Easter brunch this Sunday afternoon. Come celebrate the holiday with your friends and family and enjoy the club's delicious food with first-class service. Call 704-872-9990 or visit the 500 Club online for more details on Easter brunch. The Spring Gospel Music Fest will be at Alexander Central High School Auditorium in Taylorsville on April 24th. Gold City and Sabbath Quartet are the featured performers with showtime scheduled for 6:30 p.m. For more information, call 828-383-5176. Enjoy the Spring Gospel Music Fest in Taylorsville on Thursday, April 24th. The NHRA returns to ZMAX Dragway on April 25th through the 27th with the annual 4-Wide Nationals. See 40,000 horsepower at one time when drag racing's finest stars line up to compete 4-wide. Every ticket is a pit pass, so come early to see your favorite drivers and cars up close before they race at over 300 miles per hour. Visit CharlotteMotorspeedway.com for tickets and more information about the NHRA 4-Wide Nationals on April 25th through the 27th. To keep up with all the events happening around the community and much more, including amazing local deals, download the WSIC News app today.
MerleFest 2025 presented by Window World returns April 24th through the 27th in Wilkesboro, North Carolina. Hear the Avett Brothers, Bonnie Raitt, The Dead South, Watch House, Wyatt Floors, I'm With Her, Leftover Salmon, The Warren Treaty, The Steel Drivers, and many more. For tickets, visit merlefest.org.
Dollars and Cents continues now. Here's your host, certified financial planner Joshua Dobi on 105.9, 100.7 WSIC.
Hello and welcome back to Dollars and Cents presented by North Main Financial. I'm your host, Joshua Dobi. Thank you so much for hanging with us here. Fourth quarter of today's show, Football Reference. And we're almost there, 11 minutes, 52 seconds until we get to that 5 o'clock bell. Thank you for spending that time here with us. Right before we went to break, they were talking about the ECB, the European Central Bank. Let's call it Western Europe's version of the Federal Reserve Board. It's not exactly that, but let's call it that for means of discussion here. Cutting rates for the 7th time in a row. Does that mean anything for the Federal Reserve here? I'm sure they are definitely aware of it. Certainly the members of the Board of Governors here for the Federal Reserve are aware of it. Does that mean that they're inclined to cut rates? I don't see that at this point. I get that question a lot, and I understand why. Especially for folks who are looking at mortgages, car loans, lines of credit, etc. Do you anticipate that rates are going to be coming down? And at this point, I don't. I mean, a lot of actually, I'm not going to say speculation. There was a lot of assumption by the markets here towards the end of last year, calendar year 2024, that there was going to be significant amount of rate cutting by the Federal Reserve. Which, I mean, it's easy for me to say that now, but even then, I was like, there's no way. There's no way we're going to come out of the raising cycle that we just did, only to cut it back, to go back where we were. And I don't see that at this point. Will the Federal Reserve possibly reduce by a quarter point, maybe a half point before the end of this calendar year? Maybe. But in my personal opinion, at least at this point, not a reason to do that. And I know that's not great if you're looking at mortgages and car loans and lines of credit. I understand that. But we also need to have the other side of that coin. We also need to have a market, which we haven't had here for the last, up until a year ago, we haven't had for the last 15 years. And those are folks who are the savings class. those folks who save in CDs, those folks who save in money market accounts and savings accounts. We need them to be incentivized to save. That's a very, very important part of our overall market, especially when we're talking about the savings and investing market and folks who are setting aside assets. There needs to be some incentive to do that. So that's more my opinion than anything else, but wanted to touch on that because getting a lot of those questions with regards to interest rates, and I'm sure we'll continue to talk a lot about that as well. All right, got one more food item here. I forgot about this one. I should have brought this one up as well. We were talking about the food kinds of things. No collaboration here, but certainly a noteworthy news announcement, especially if you're a fan of this particular QSR, this quick serve restaurant. Sonic Drive-In, right? You can drive in and order right from your car there, and they bring it to you. Private company, by the way, owned by a group you hear us talk about with some regularity here, primarily because they're so huge and the number of labels that they own. Roark Capital, R-O-A-R-K, Capital owns Sonic, in addition to Jimmy John's, and in addition to a number of Subway as well now. They own a number of different QSR entities. But Sonic, next week, interesting, they've come out with, and they're known for their hamburgers, their quick-style hamburgers, the Double Sonic Smasher for next week. And what I didn't realize, and I guess all of you Sonic Smasher types would know, that next week is apparently Smasher Week. I didn't know that. I mean, it's hard for me. There's always a celebration every day or every week. It's either certain, such and such a day, or, there's always something going on. But apparently next week, according to Sonic, is Smasher Week. So for their Double Sonic Smasher, and this is the big part here, the first 1 million folks who utilize the Sonic app. So if you have the app for Sonic Drive-In and you go there, you're ordering the Double Sonic Smasher, the first 1 million folks who order the Double Sonic Smasher through their app next week get it for $1. I thought that was kind of a big deal. Double Smash Burger, from Sonic for $1 if you order through their app next week. So you may want to take a look at it. If you're one who loves Sonic hamburgers, that may be something to keep in mind. All right, let's keep going. Here, jobless claims this morning, pretty much in line. And I don't say that because jobless claims are anything to be taken lightly. I'm talking about from an historical numbers standpoint. 215,000 came across the tape here this morning. 225,000 was expected. That's right in line, folks. That's right in line with normal expectation. If you X out the time of COVID here for the last, I would say, close to 10 years, almost 10 years, that's pretty much in line, somewhere between 200 and 250,000 in a given week in terms of new claims, running continuous claims in that 1.6 to 1.8 million range. Again, very much in line with what we can expect in those spaces, apart from obviously extremes like what we experienced during the COVID shutdowns. But I say that to say that at least on the unemployment end of things, again, not taking away from those folks who have lost jobs and who are filing, but in terms of the overall economy, we continue to be right in line with what we would expect with a healthy economy. Now, I'm saying that, going back to my Federal Reserve Board discussion about cutting rates, that there's not a reason to cut rates. Sometimes one of the macro factors that they continue is the increase in unemployment. So the Federal Reserve sometimes will look to cut rates to make things cheaper for employers, to incentivize them to hire more. It's not that binary, but that is a factor in looking at where things are. But the fact that unemployment is so low, less of a reason for the Federal Reserve to cut rates. So that's one of the macro factors that we're watching. So again, and all of these things, and I know it sounds like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth when I'm highlighting these factors, it's only because nothing is binary. Nothing is black and white, yin and yang when it comes to economic variability. There always are dozens of input points on each of these decisions. And it's more a factor of the accumulation of that data, or the accumulation of those data points in understanding. You can't just look at one thing. And I know we do this. We do it all the time, especially through our news and media outlets. We want to look at one thing and say, that's the reason why this great thing or this horrible thing is happening. I know, because it's easy to put on a news segment. That's the reason why we do it. But it just doesn't work that way. There are so many inputs and outputs on each of these that's why I'm caveating constantly here about saying, okay, this is part of it, but not all of it. And that's what I'm talking about unemployment as well. So good that the claims remain low. Probably not going to be a factor, though, that's going to encourage the Federal Reserve to cut rates. So that's going to be something to keep in mind. All right, let's talk a big company here. Let's talk Google. They have certainly hit the headlines here. Not so much maybe in your end of the world, because things have been overshadowed a little bit by all of the talk of tariffs and what that is impacting us as an economy. But Google right now is in an antitrust suit with the European Union, and meaning they have been sued by the European Union, who have accused Google of operating a monopoly. And there was actually there was a decision handed down that from the EU that called Google an illegal advertising monopoly, meaning that they had an unnaturally large portion of the online or internet advertising market, meaning that they controlled it or had some influence over too much of it. Now, you've heard me say any number of times, and this is not to defend monopolies at all, but there is no specific figure that's associated with that, meaning that it's not true that you're declared a monopoly if you have 51% influence or 75% influence or 99% influence or ownership or manipulation of that particular market. There's no number that's out there because it can't exist. Every single industry is different. Every single company is different. Every single sector is different. And so, again, this is not defending the idea of monopolies. That's not what I'm doing at all. But what I am saying is it's very, very hard to hear how these things get defined. And usually what happens, there's a big fine and the big company pays the big fine and we keep moving forward. It looks like that might be what happens here. But kind of interesting that kind of ruling came out. I don't think that there's going to be any kind of need for Google to divest of anything. Sometimes in the stronger cases, that is what needs to happen, meaning companies need to break up and they need to sell off portions of their business in order to not have so much control over a given sector or a given industry that in which they operate. But it was kind of interesting to see that. Google's been fighting this a long time. Microsoft has been fighting this on the operating software end of things for a long time. Wouldn't be too surprised if somebody at some point brings that kind of case against Amazon because they own the home delivery market for just about everything that we order online anymore. At least it feels that way, and kind of interesting that when those kinds of things happen. One more on the company line of things, then I'll get into a real brief synopsis on the market. United Healthcare, this just happened today. UNH, Umbrella Nancy Henry, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the equity or the debt. Just came out with quarterly earnings today, and whoa, did they get hammered in the market. Now, I looked at the quarterly earnings report, did not listen to the call, but I looked at the quarterly earnings report. Let me say I looked at the highlights, did not look at the entire report. And at least relative to the initial data that I saw, wasn't terribly off in terms of missing expectations. Not great, but the stock, which is a more conservative stock, it's part of the Dow Jones Industrial Average, was down 20%, over 20%. Actually, it was 22% before I came on the air here. That's unusual for a company that large and, let's say, quite a bit more conservative by nature, that they would be down 22% in a day. So United Healthcare not having a particularly good day when it comes to market performance, missing on their quarterly earnings relative to expectations. All right, let's talk markets real quick here. I know we're getting close to the top of the hour. Again, as you heard me say at the beginning of today's show, continued turbulence. We've talked about that week over week, and not to be a spoiler, we're going to continue to be in this space for a while, folks. This is not something that is going to go away very quickly, meaning the market turbulence aspect of things. The market's going to need to get settled with the idea of how to price certain tariffs, certain industries, certain companies. We're probably going to need to get through an earnings cycle to see what the actual impacts are. We actually just had some indication from Alcoa, Alpha, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the equity or bonds there, about which was one of the first companies to indicate the cost of some of the tariff impacts. Probably going to need to hear that. And until we get there, we're going to have more turbulence in the market. It's going to happen. So just be tuned into that. Don't be overwhelmed by it. Take a look at your portfolio, not because you're making any changes, but so that you understand what the impact points are. Especially if you own funds and ETFs, are there ones that are moving more than others? That's important. That's important to keep in mind. And then be mindful also as things recover. Are there things that you need to trim or rebalance? That's always a good point to consider. Well, friends, I appreciate so much you hanging with us here on this week's version of Dollars and Cents presented by North Main Financial Group. Thursdays at 4 is the time that we're on here on WSIC. Hopefully you can make it again next week as we give attention to, and perhaps we'll even spark a little conversation regarding items of financial and economic importance. See you then.
Serving you better than ever before. WSIC, Statesville, W290DK Mooresville,